In the military, you're given a uniform and instructed on how to do things and when to do them. But what happens when the cadence fades and you're no longer wearing that uniform? I'm KP, and I started this podcast to fill that silence with direction and to provide overall support for my beloved military family. Welcome to the Morning Formation. This episode is brought to you by Act Now Education. Warriors, fall in. It's time for formation. Today on the show, we're going to be speaking with Kate Wood, who currently works as a recruiter for an organization called HireMilitary. We also have our future military leader, Avi, over here, who is helping me co-host and taking care of the technical side of the house. Avi, how you doing today, man? You want to share any small victories that you had take place this week?
Yeah, well, KP, you're putting me on the spot here. I just got accepted into ASU, and it's a stepping stone for me to get into the Air Force, so pretty excited for that.
No, it's great that all our listeners, and even including myself, that we're part of your journey. I'm looking forward to see where you're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be extremely exciting. So our guest today is not only a military spouse, but she was also a West Point graduate, a former Medical Service Corps commissioned officer in the United States Army. I'd like to thank you, Kate, for joining us today on the Morning Formation.
Thank you, KP. It's so great to be here. Really excited to just have a chance to talk to you and, spend the next hour with you guys.
The honor is all ours. And so, Kate, would you mind starting out by telling us a little bit about your military background and just your experiences while you were in service?
Sure, absolutely. So as you alluded, I entered the military through West Point. Went to West Point for college. Actually met my husband there. We both commissioned straight out of West Point, and my first duty station was Fort Stewart. Like you mentioned, I was a Medical Service Corps officer. Went straight into a Charlie Med as a platoon leader, treatment platoon leader, deployed with them to Iraq, and then I came back, and I actually applied for the Army's physical therapy program. And so that was my next step after my time doing some work in the Charlie Med. I went to the Army Baylor Physical Therapy School in Fort Sam. And due to some personal things, I actually ended up transitioning right out of the military halfway through that school. So that was kind of, I know we're going to talk transition here later, but it was a very interesting transition for me, coming out of the military, coming out of a kind of a specialized school and then transitioning right away. So, but yeah, that was my time in the military. My husband is still on active duty. He's stationed with 7th Special Forces Group here in Northwest Florida. I cannot complain at all about this duty station. It is a hidden gem in the Army, that is for sure. So I've been really navigating my professional career for the last 7 years while he's been on active duty. And I've worked in recruiting. That was the first job I did actually post-military. And then I transitioned into some marketing and communications roles with a nonprofit and actually helped start a nonprofit organization as well. And then I found and landed at HireMilitary, which is what I do currently. I'm a recruiter for a company called HireMilitary, and I absolutely love it. I feel like I've finally transitioned, I guess you could say. 7 years after leaving the military, I finally found something that I really love and feel like it fits me both personally and professionally.
I can certainly relate to the transition that you're talking about. My first job after resigning my commission, I was there for only 1 year, and then I decided to move on to something else. It wasn't a very good fit. And also to hear that you found a hidden gem for a duty station is surprising in the United States Army, anyways, because we don't have the best of the best. We're not the Air Force or the Navy, so we don't have the best of the best locations out there. So that's refreshing to hear. Would you mind, as a recruiter for HireMilitary, can you tell us about your position? The term recruiter is such a general term, but I know that your job has so many more tasks that play into being successful in that position. Would you mind talking about what you do and about the organization itself?
Yeah, absolutely, KP. So let me just touch on HireMilitary. If you aren't familiar, HireMilitary was founded in 2017, basically out of our CEO, Michael Quinn's struggle with his own transition. He was a sergeant major in the Army, thought that he was just going to slide right into a really ideal career post-military, and it was a struggle. He struggled. And one of the biggest things that he found through his transition is that building your network is really the foundation of a successful transition. And so he created HireMilitary at first to facilitate the DoD Skill Bridge program. So that's one of our main business lanes, is placing transitioning service members into DoD Skill Bridges. But then he also realized that there's a real need for kind of education around LinkedIn, how to use LinkedIn and digital networking. So that's something else we offer. It's called the Digital Networking Professional Program. And that's something that active duty members can do for free. They can receive that training for free and receive a certification as a digital networking professional. But then the area of HireMilitary that I work in is kind of our direct hire lane. And that's where I work as a recruiter. We partner with a multitude of organizations, anywhere from small veteran-owned businesses to large companies. One of our main clients is one of the big 4 consulting firms. So these organizations have all partnered with us to specifically find military talent, whether that's transitioning service members, veterans, or military spouses. And as a recruiter, I meet with those companies and they share their open positions that they would like us to recruit. And part of what I do as a recruiter is really getting into the minds of the hiring managers at these organizations and finding out who their ideal candidates are. If they have experience with the military, what kind of MOSs or military experience do they feel like would be really beneficial for these roles? And then we share the roles with our community and actively source from there. So what does that look like? Other than just posting a job on our careers page and sharing it on LinkedIn, the different networks that I'm a part of, whether it's my West Point network or my military spouse networks, I share our open roles throughout those communities, as well as directly, searching and looking for people on LinkedIn or, connecting with others in my network to find people that I feel are ideal for these roles. And then from there, you begin the real work, right? The screening of candidates. And something that I feel is really great about what HireMilitary offers and how we work as recruiters is that we kind of walk through the entire process with candidates. So if you applied for one of our roles, KP, and I screen you and I say, yes, you're an ideal candidate, I pass you forward to our company. And if you are asked to interview with them, we do interview preparation and everything all the way up until contract negotiation as well. I walk through and help you negotiate your offer. So I'm kind of with you through that entire process. So I think that's something that we kind of offer that, is really beneficial for our transitioning service members, veterans, and spouses, is that you have kind of a confidant in me as a recruiter, helping you walk through the entire process when you apply for one of our roles that we're recruiting for on behalf of our company. So I hope that was, that was a long answer, but there's a lot that goes into it. And I think it really sets HireMilitary apart.
Yeah, definitely. That hand-in-hand partnership type methodology is very, very helpful, especially for those people who can find this process a bit more daunting than normal. Now, Kate, I know that especially during transitioning, marketing the military skills and responsibilities that you acquire and do in the service can be pretty difficult to market to private sector companies, especially if they're uninitiated or just don't really understand the ins and outs of military life. What do you do, or what does HireMilitary do to make that process a bit easier?
That's a really good question, Avi. And I think that it's kind of one of the scariest parts about transition is how will I be perceived? Does anyone understand what I have done outside of the military, right? And so it's kind of a twofold answer. So one of the things that we do at HireMilitary is that it's why we have recruiters sitting as kind of an in-between phase between handing people off to these companies. If we partner with an organization that doesn't have anyone in the military in their organization or has no understanding, we really help translate that military experience to the hiring managers of why we feel like this is a great candidate. We're not translating resumes. We're not going to do your resume for you. But we can suggest edits, and we can, really frame you in a light that showcases what experiences do fit for these open roles and for these companies. And it's also kind of part of, advice that we give to candidates, or, how we interact with people through different networking, whether it's LinkedIn or informational interviews, is really helping to, give service members, transitioning service members, the confidence to frame their work and their experiences in a way that is seen in a good light in the civilian corporate sector, right? So having that humbleness and understanding that maybe what I do isn't directly transferable, but a lot of my soft skills or some of the technical things that I have learned are transferable. And it's just reshaping and like you mentioned, marketing yourself in that way that can be easily seen by outside organizations.
Right, right. Definitely an important aspect of HireMilitary right there, and I know something a lot of veterans will appreciate. Now, going back to the transitioning side of things, does HireMilitary accept anyone who's transitioning at any point during their transition, or do you have to prepare some resources or at least a minimum viable marketability portfolio before you can get real help, or effective help, I should say, from
That's a great
HireMilitary?
question. So, two separate answers. We welcome you to connect with us, anyone throughout the organization, no matter where you are. If you've got 5 years left in that active service, or if you've already transitioned, you're a veteran that's been out for 15 years, we help the full breadth, right? So if you're one of those people that's still on active duty, we will funnel you towards the SkillBridge program, seeing if you can find a SkillBridge internship that is viable for you. And our website, when you go to register on HireMilitary.us, there's an option there that asks for your ETS date, right? So everything's kind of based off of your ETS date. If you still haven't transitioned yet, or you don't even have an ETS date to put on there, you're going to be funneled towards the people that do the SkillBridge internships, and they can provide you more information on how you can apply to a SkillBridge and the different options that we have available. I think we have 250 SkillBridge internships available on our website right now. Or if you're that veteran that is less than 180 days on active duty service, or you've already transitioned, or you're a military spouse, when you go to register on our website, you'll be funneled towards the recruiter side, the direct hire full-time position side. And that's where I come in and really finding if there's any of our open roles that are a fit for you. And if there aren't currently, which we have about 60 open roles right now, if we don't have any that fit for you, you can register your interest with us. And all you need there is a resume and filling out the application of, who you are, your LinkedIn profile if you have one, contact information. But a resume is really, even if it's not perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect, but a resume that we can kind of say, hey, here's what you've done. That's all we need to have you, into our system. And then we just go from there.
So, Kate, I want to ask you, you mentioned earlier about the resumes, that you don't write the resumes for the folks that you serve. And having been a former officer myself, and over the years having reviewed so many resumes, you see all walks of life when you see these things, when you get them in your hands.
Yes.
So you literally have everything written in Crayola crayons to elegant feather pens. How do you, when you work with folks, how do you get a baseline at least of a decent resume? Do you recommend beforehand for them to coordinate and speak to a certain organization or folks to help get that baseline resume, so you're not, getting something that needs complete work? Or
Yes.
Or how does that work?
Yes. And will be the first to say that the first resume I ever created when I was transitioning was not great. It was horrible, actually. And it is very hard. Resumes are hard. It's something that really kind of, it keeps people from applying, right? They're not confident in themselves. They're not confident in the way they're portraying themselves on a piece of paper. And it really kind of inhibits service members sometimes, or even veterans, from wanting to even apply for roles. So we have some really great contacts. And there's so many organizations out there that are in this space, the veteran service organization space, and doing resumes. But one that we partner with specifically at HireMilitary is Vet Jobs. And Vet Jobs, if you're not familiar, if the listeners aren't familiar, they work with veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses. They will connect you one-on-one to a career counselor, and that career counselor can give you resume advice. They do interview prep, they do career coaching, they help you in job search. the full breadth, right? And this is someone that is specifically, matched with you. I had one. She helped me in this last process of before I applied for my HireMilitary job, and she was amazing. And we met almost every couple weeks to just go over things like that. So that's a really great organization. Vet Jobs is great. There's tons more out there as well. And I think another really great thing, aside from actual organizations that do resume writing or do assistance with job searching, is veterans, transitioning service members, and spouses finding mentors. And some really great mentor organizations are Veterati and American Corporate Partners. Those are my two favorite. I've utilized both of them extensively in my own personal, professional journey. So those are really great organizations finding mentors. And then I think another thing that plays into building an ideal resume is conducting informational interviews. And that's basically just scheduling calls with, people that you think would be interesting to talk to and finding out, what do you do, as a program manager? What are you actually doing? What is this role like? What types of certifications or skills or experience are people looking for when they're looking to hire people in these roles? And that's how you really build out your resume, and understanding of roles and industries is by having those conversations. But that was a long answer to your question, which was about resumes. But Vet Jobs is the one that I can really, I can mention today as being a really great resource for resumes.
Oh, resumes is the start. I mean, that's the baseline of everything. So that's some great advice. And, Kate, what caught my attention with you is the engagement that you have on your social media posts, specifically LinkedIn. Can you talk with us more about how you're using such platforms to better connect with the military community?
Yes, I feel like I spend all day on LinkedIn, which is a great thing because it is such an amazing tool. And I think if you just get on there and get familiar with it, you are really, you just become so aware of how powerful it actually is. And the question you had about, how to utilize it as a veteran service member or, a transitioning service member or a spouse is really, you have to build out a profile, right? You got to get out there. You have to build your profile. You have to put enough information on there for people to have, some interest, right? Don't use a picture that is of you in your uniform, right? That's the military side of you. People want to see other sides of you, So don't use a picture of you in military uniform. Use a picture of you in anything else, basically. A professional one, though. And give some life to your profile, right? Make it interesting. Tell some things that you're interested in outside of, professional endeavors. Have you volunteered anywhere? Do you have, other organizations you're a part of? So building out the profile is the first part because I search recruiters, other recruiters, can search people on LinkedIn based off of that information, right? So if you're looking for a data engineer role, that has to be somewhere within your LinkedIn profile. So when I search for you, it pops up, right? So you have to optimize your profile. And that's what the Digital Networking Professional Program that HireMilitary offers it does exactly. You come out of that program with a fully built LinkedIn profile that's optimized, as well as a resume. So that was something I should have mentioned that earlier when you talked about resumes. If you attend the Digital Networking Professional certification, you will come away from that certification with a resume that's professionally written and built. But back to LinkedIn, you have to optimize your profile. That's the place you have to start. And then you have to start engaging. Connect with people in roles and industries that you're interested in. Connect with them. Offer, a personalized connection request. I'm transitioning from the military. I'm very interested in becoming a Salesforce administrator. Can you offer more insight? I'd love to connect. You have to put yourself out there. And especially if you are attempting to connect within the military ecosystem, veterans are so eager to help. The veteran community, military spouse community, everyone is so eager to help. You just have to ask. Ask in a smart, specific way so that they can give you a specific answer. And then the last thing is engage. Engage on people's posts. Comment on people's posts, things that you find interesting and insightful. Create your own posts. Offering little glimpses into, some challenges you had in the military or successes you had in the military or your transition process. Any of those little pieces helps people to just see other sides of you. And the more you network on LinkedIn by engaging on people's posts, creating your own posts, connecting with more people, the more visibility you have. It's a social media platform. The more you like, the more you comment, the more you tag, the more you post, the more visibility that people have on you as a person and as on your profile. So that's really what it is. And to be quite honest with you, up until about maybe 7 or 8 months ago, I wasn't that active on LinkedIn. And I'm so humble in how things have grown. It's been crazy. I mean, I went from like 600 connections to, I think, close to maybe like 3,000 in 6 months. Not to say that's anything, specifically that I've done other than just trying to engage and be present, and putting in a little bit of time every day to just have a presence on the platform, and put yourself out there.
Kate, I know I can speak for both KP and I when I say nobody overestimates the power of social media. The abilities and the opportunities you have access to, or even the engagement that people can see you integrating yourself into different communities and providing your personal experiences, putting yourself out there. Nobody can underestimate the value that you can get out of social media. And a lot of people are reluctant to participate on things like LinkedIn or niche Facebook groups because they think, well, I don't really belong here, or I don't have much to add, or I just don't want to use social media in general. But the reality is, when you're transitioning or trying to make your name for yourself, or even develop your professional career as you are, it's very, very important. And whether it be stumbling upon clubhouse rooms or different veteran organizations, or very, very helpful, very open Facebook groups that have very, very involved and active members that can help you, mentor you, teach you lessons, it's just, the possibilities are endless. And that is a main reason why we started this podcast, to help people realize that there are opportunities and resources out there, even if it's a LinkedIn hashtag or a Facebook group. It's very, very important there. Now, Kate, when you separated from the military, was everything as you anticipated it to be? Or were there things that you experienced that weren't very ideal or kind of caught you off guard?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that no, things did not go exactly like I thought they would. If you would have told me that I would be doing recruiting for an organization that specializes in the military demographic, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have believed you, even though I took a recruiting role as my first job out of the military. I did not like that role. My first job was not ideal. I stayed there for about a year, like you had mentioned before, KP. I was in my role for maybe a year. And it was not what I wanted. And part of that came from maybe my lack of preparation in my transition. And I think a lot of it came from just feeling like I had to take the first thing that came along. And I know that that's something that happens with a lot of service members when they transition. It's scary. There's a lot of unknowns, and you feel like, well, I have to take the first thing that comes along because I don't know if there's going to be anything else. So that was something for me that I did not go as planned. I thought, wow, I'm going to have an amazing career. I'm valuable because I did time in the military, which we are. The skills that we have are valuable. You just have to find where you fit best. So that didn't go well. And then as a veteran and a military spouse with a spouse on active duty, there's so many unknowns, right? My husband deployed every 6 months for the last 7 years, like 6 months on, 6 months home, 6 months gone, 6 months home. And so that's, just navigating a different part of my transition in my professional journey, and just trying to have a very flexible and open mind about things, right? And seeing other people's career trajectories and not comparing my own, because I'm in my own situation, right? So that's something that I think is hard for veterans as well, because you might have gone to boot camp with someone, right? And you stayed in a little longer, or they got out before you and now they're out doing something, and you see where their career is going, and then you transition, you're like, well, I should be getting something that's on par for where they're at because, we were the same rank, or we came in at the same time. And you can't do that. Comparison is the thief of joy. That's a very, cliche saying, but comparison is also the thief of your own personal progress. Everyone has their own journeys. And especially when it comes to transition, my goodness, you could have someone that was in the Army, was a medical service corps officer just like myself, had the same undergrad, we went to the same schools, did all the same things, but we will have two completely different transitions. We will have two completely different career paths, because we're individuals and you cannot compare yourself to others. So I think that was one thing that I struggled with in my transition, was just not comparing myself to other people and where they were at in their career journey and where I was at. Yeah, I could talk a lot on that, because it's something that I'm still kind of, I think about a lot, and especially on LinkedIn, that's one of the downsides of any social media platform, is the comparison piece, and trying not to get caught up on that, and instead just focusing on where you're finding success, or you're finding joy, or where you're passionate, where your passions lie, and really finding the ideal next job or career for you.
Most definitely, Kate. And many times when I speak to veterans like yourself, when you're describing some of your experiences, I can certainly connect with what you're saying as far as transition being scary. I remember distinctly when I put in my resignation, or when I resigned my commission, I had so many other captains come up to me, and they were like, "Oh, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do?" Like, what, you could tell that they were fearful for me. And I'm like, listen, I believe in myself. I believe that I'm a hard worker. And at the end of the day, I'm going to do it. Like, if you're in this business because you're afraid of what's on the other side, then you're in this business for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely.
And it's refreshing to hear, folks like yourself explain this similar experiences as well. And if you could go back in time, Kate, and give freshly commissioned Second Lieutenant Kate Wood advice on better preparedness of the career transitioning aspect, let's just say, what are 3 things that you'd advise young Kate Wood?
Wow. Oh my goodness. You're taking me back to another world now. So small caveat, I've been out of the military longer than I was in, come February, which is a very weird feeling, right? Because you identify so much with who you were in the military. 3 things that I would mention to Second Lieutenant Kate Wood. I would probably just say, it kind of goes back to that comparison thing, but, giving yourself grace, right? Like being a little easy on yourself, right? Like, being in the military is hard, right? Especially as a second lieutenant, you're trying to feel like, where do I fit in and prove myself? And there's a lot you're navigating there as well. But I think just being, taking it easy on myself a little bit more, because I think that you rush and you focus so much on what's in front of you, especially in the military. It's like, this is the biggest priority right now. Everything is, needs to get done now. And you leave little time for yourself, especially as a leader. As a leader in the military, you leave little time for yourself. So I guess that would be my next point would be, take time for yourself, take time for personal development, professional development while you're young and in the military. When you have 3 or 4 years until you transition, right? You don't want to be having to try to fit in 100 informational interviews in your last 60 to 180 days in the military. Talk to people early. If you come across anyone while you're in the military, whether they're in the military or out of the military, that's something that's interesting to you, stay in contact with them. It's never a bad idea to take time for yourself to do personal and professional development. So that's another piece. And the third piece of advice for Second Lieutenant Kate Wood, it kind of networking, but it goes to something else of just relationship building. The one thing that I think we all can say we miss about being in the military is the people. Luckily we have Facebook and we have things like that, or different social media platforms where you can keep in touch with people. And I'm like friends with my old platoon sergeant on Facebook, and we're commenting on each other's stuff a lot. And, it's like, take the time to get to know people, right? Not just because you're their leader and you're supposed to say you care about them, which you should, get to know them. You never know when you're going to cross paths with people in the future, especially once you're all out, everyone's out of the military and you're, working professionally. You never know when you're going to cross paths, right? So just maintain those friendships, maintain those relationships, take advantage of it. Take advantage of being stuck with someone for 30 days out in the field. Like, get to know them, get to know their family. Take advantage of the time, because the military is such a unique and amazing organization. You have people from all different walks of life, from all over the country, and get to know them. Take advantage of it. It's one of the most amazing things about the military is the people. So that would be my last piece of advice.
Yeah, and the piece where you're talking about taking time for yourself and investing in yourself is something that I feel like even when you're on the civilian side of your career is something that you have to always remind yourself of doing, is to, yes, it's important to do your in-house training, but also take into consideration some of the opportunities that you have outside, because I know that there's, especially if you're a veteran or a mil-spouse, there's a lot of opportunities, certifications you can get, like with Act Now Education. We have Coursera is one of our biggest organizations that we work with. It's an online platform. So you can continue that education and talk about that time for yourself and investing in yourself. So that's some great advice. And there's certainly a lot of things that I would definitely tell the younger version of myself as well. But going back to your social media posts and LinkedIn, that's how I found you, Kate. So what you're doing is working 100%. And I saw one of your posts where you wrote about time, and it involved career and mental preparedness. And I certainly think managing time is extremely important. As far as time, what can a service member do to efficiently utilize their time in preparedness for a career transition?
Yeah, that's a great question, KP. And I think you're alluding to a post I did about, it was before the last 4-day weekend. And, veterans or transitioning service members are constantly DMing me and saying, hey, what advice do you have? What are the things that I need to do to, prepare myself for transition? And I usually give them very pointed advice on, here's what you need to do, resume or organizations to connect with, like the list of to-dos. And I thought that it would be a great idea just to post something about, hey, the most important thing you can do over a 4-day weekend is to take time for yourself and spend time with your family, right? We can get so stuck into, this is all the to-dos I need to do for my transition, and they are all important, and you should give time to all of those different things that help you to prepare smartly for a transition. But take time with your family. Take time to revisit an old hobby that you had, right? That's where this mental health and mental well-being and self-care really plays into things, because we find we lose ourselves to the military when you're in active duty, and once you get out, it's almost like, who am I? What do I like? What are the things that I'm interested in outside of the military? So that's very important. But as far as preparing for your transition on the other side of that, right? It's just starting early. It's never too early to start. Even if you have 3, 4 years, or, you're more than a year out from your transition, if you know that you're really interested in becoming, doing IT, talk to people in IT or the different career fields that you're interested in. And what are the certifications I need? What are the types of skills, certifications that are ideal for this type of role? Start working on those. It's never too early. I know someone that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. He has over 50 or 60 certifications, and he's still in the military. And he's setting himself up very well for transitioning into a career that can utilize, several of those certifications. So start early. It comes down to that networking piece again. Find people in fields that you're interested in, even if it's just having one conversation a week. Find one person in your professional network or through LinkedIn that you can have an informational interview with. 15 minutes a week. One call, 15 minutes a week. Pick their brain. Ask them all the questions. That's a great way to start. Start small. Schedule a call, and then that one call will turn into other calls. And through that, you will find the different organizations or education options that will really help you to prepare the most for your transition.
Yeah, for me, Kate, when I was a lieutenant, and I would have my platoon, trying to get some of the lower enlisted folks to properly utilize their time in a sense of feeling accomplished was something that I tried really hard to do, whether it was trying to get them to the education center or, you know, have them do something more positive other than sit around the barracks and drink all weekend or go out to the bars or the clubs. Let's just face it, that's just how it is, right?
It is.
So that post in itself stuck out to me the most. And I'm the type of person where I like feeling accomplished and seeing the fruits of my labor. And it kind of gives you a sense of pride, but it gets the momentum rolling in the right direction. So I thought that was a great post that you put up as far as, hey, you know, don't just waste your 4-day weekend, but, you know, use it for family, use it for yourself. And you just mentioned IT. And so this rolls into my next question. From your experience, you know, it sounds like IT is number one, but what are the hot careers seeking to hire veterans, and what do you think will be in demand beyond the horizon?
Such an interesting question. And honestly, KP, myself, Lucy, our hiring manager, and Amber, the other recruiter at HireMilitary, we talk about this almost constantly because the job market, and I think I could say this, is wild right now, right? It's a candidates market. There are job openings everywhere across every industry, in every organization, whether it's fast food to, you know, cybersecurity consulting with a Big Four consulting firm. Like it's wild, and it's really hard to know where are the trends at, right? So I'm going to speak to a couple things. I'm going to speak to you know, trends of current openings, which it's kind of wild to say this, but it is. It's IT. It's anything related to you know, cyber is a huge thing right now. It's not going to go anywhere. So cybersecurity, any roles in cybersecurity are really hot right now. But I'm going to caveat with saying it's hard for transitioning service members to slide right into those roles, right? There's a limited amount of entry level cybersecurity or entry level IT roles out there. They do require some education and experience. Not to say you might not come from the military with some of that experience. But it does require, you know, some education, some certification, some training, things like that. Tons of those organizations out there that we just talked about that offer a lot of those certifications and things like that. So those are trends that I think are definitely not going anywhere, right? But I think a trend that I see from a perspective of you know, things that veterans, transitioning service members offer is it's always that leadership piece. Some of the soft skills that come and, you know, from being a military veteran and operating in the military, those are skills that employers want. Being dedicated and hardworking and operating in fast-paced environments, kind of being unflappable, right? You don't buckle under stress or pressure. And then the leadership piece as well. Like those are things that organizations are always going to need, no matter if you're, you know, working in IT or another industry. So just, you know, be confident that you come away with the military with those skills and that there's organizations out there that want them. The other trend I'm seeing is that there's a lot of skilled trades that are open right now. And we're actually recruiting for several of them. Like if you were a diesel mechanic or worked on any sort of, you know, machines in the motor pool, you drove trucks or any of that, like we are actively sourcing for roles like that. But a lot of people that were in those MOSs that have directly transferable skills outside of the military, they're wanting to branch into, you know, IT and tech and things like that, which is great. I think people should pursue whatever they're interested in and whatever they're passionate about. But I think that if you have those skilled trades and you have that experience doing some of that skilled work, right, based off of your MOS, there are roles out there that are directly transferable for you too. So I guess all that to say, it's a very interesting time, and there's openings everywhere across the board. Yeah, it's a really interesting time to be a recruiter. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, most definitely. And I really, when I got out of the military, it was 2007. And so I always say this, and it just kind of gives you an idea, but there was no Facebook. I mean, Facebook was just starting out, and MySpace was the hottest thing out there. So that's what I had, was a MySpace. There was no LinkedIn.
Nope.
So today there's really no excuses on why you can't connect and why you can't start networking and finding folks to help position yourself in into the right career before getting out. And I understand what you're saying 100%. And I believe that transition actually begins when you join the military. And it sounds kind of strange, but a lot of folks wait to the very end when they're getting ready to get out, and then they start figuring out, oh, I need to get certifications. I need to do this. I need to figure out where I'm going to live next. I got to move my family. But in reality, over the course of your whole career, if you properly manage your career, you can start going to the education center the first week that you show up to your duty station, and slowly over time, you can knock out a lot of the education certifications, diplomas, and things like that over the course of your time that you're actually stationed wherever you're at. So how do we connect better outreach with our current leaders to entice and hold our service members accountable to better invest in themselves versus wasting their time? I know we talked about time earlier, but what's the best way that we can connect with current? Because when I was lieutenant, that was the one thing that I felt like was different. How I did things differently than other lieutenants was try to get folks to go to the education center. At the time, I was also working on my own master's degree as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Gosh, such a great question. Such an amazing topic, KP. I think that I'm going to change your what you said about, transitions should start as soon as you join the military. I think you should start even before you join. When you go to a recruiter, or whether you're at an academy or you're in ROTC and you're thinking about your majors or what branches you're picking, have some foresight to think, okay, what could I do with this? Obviously, I could do that in the military. What could I do with this afterwards, right? Because there are so many options for branches. There's so many options for different MOSs in the military, ratings, across the different services. Thinking about that, right? Like taking the time to really think, what can I do with this? Not only in the military, but when I transition as well. So I think it starts there.
Yes.
And then as far as getting leaders connected, right? So I think it's hard to change kind of that old way of thinking of, everyone that's in the military should want to stay in the military, and you should always be wanting to, where do I want to promote to next? Where's my next 3 jobs if I continue promoting? And I think that there's a lot of healthy conversations happening now in the military of kind of the opposite of that, of saying like, okay, well, you want to transition, great. Like, how can we set you up? The DoD Skill Bridge program is an amazing example of how the military is changing and offering people to do a 6-month internship while they're on active duty still, right? They're getting paid by the Army, but they're basically loaned out to these organizations to learn about different roles and industries and learn about these organizations. So it's happening, right? And I think like you, KP, we just have to be, for the people that are still in the military, you have to be a leader that's open to that, right? The military, not everyone's going to do 20 years in the military. That's just not it. And that's not required. That's why you have different reenlistments, right? You have different reenlistment options. So allow people to become the best versions of themselves, whether that's doing, training within the military to reach their professional goals, or whether that's pursuing other things that'll help set them up well for a transition. You should definitely not come away from the military without having completed some sort of education, right? Whether it's working towards your associates, a bachelor's, or your master's, or completing different certifications while you're in the military as well. There's so many resources out there. There's so many options, and you have to at least do your own, due diligence in finding out what's out there and the resources that you have available to you. So I think it starts small, right? It starts by those leaders taking that extra step of asking, their soldiers, what do you see yourself doing, during their counselings? Do you want to stay in? Are you liking the military? If you're not, then what are you really looking to do? And it just helps to prepare everyone to be successful, right? Whether you're staying in the military or getting out. So it starts at that low level. And I think that there's a small change happening. I see it amongst different veterans that we have coming out that have said, I was able to do a skill bridge, or I was able to, do X, Y, and Z education or certification. My command allowed me to have that time. So I think that there is a change happening, but it comes from both sides, right? The leadership has to put in the work, and then the individual has to put in the work as well to find out where they want to take themselves.
Yeah, what was real interesting, Kate, was I recently stopped by a recruiting station, an Army recruiting station, And I asked the recruiters there, I said, hey, I know that when you sign people up for the military, you ask them, what are your goals? And do you follow up with those goals once they're done with their basic training in AIT? And they said, well, yeah, they send us a picture and tell us that they're done. And I'm like, no, that's not what I mean. Like, do you, you asked them what their goals were? Are you following up to make sure that they're being held accountable as far as what they said they were going to do? And are they, getting their bachelor's degree or whatever it said? And you're like, well, no. And I think that's the gap that the morning formation, that's what I would like for the morning formation to play as far as linking up with, HireMilitary and also Act Now Education, some of these other groups out there to help hold people accountable to follow their goals and to do so even when they get to their first duty station. So that's definitely kind of where I was going with that question here. I know Avi's going to follow up with something.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Kate, talk about transitioning before you even transition into the military. That is exactly what I'm doing right here on this podcast, learning about the ins and outs of transitioning out so that when I transition in, I'm already ready to transition out. That's exactly what I'm working on. That is awesome. From your experience, what are some things that service members think they understand about transitioning but really don't and often succumb to that pitfall?
That's a really good question. And I think, hear me out before you judge me how I'm going to answer this. I think that sometimes transitioning service members sometimes overvalue the fact that they've served in the military. And they feel like, oh, I served, I'm going to get a job like that. People are waiting for me. People are waiting for me to get out of the military so they can hire me. And again, do not discount the skills that you come away with the military, right? Being a leader, being adaptable, being flexible, all of these soft skills that we gather in the military, and a lot of technical skills, right? There's a lot of MOSs out there that have very technical skills that you come away with. But no one is waiting for you. People are not going to be groveling at your feet saying, pick our company, pick our company, pick our organization, okay? You have got to put in the work. You have to put the work in. That is the part of transition that will make you successful or it will have you fail. You have to put in the work, okay? And you have to be humble. You have to have a degree of humbleness in saying, I might have been amazing in the military, which you probably were, but outside of the military is much different. Even if you're going directly into like a DoD government contracting job, okay? That organization is not your battalion. It's not your platoon. It wasn't your brigade, wherever you were at in the military. It is their own organization. They have their own culture. The job has its own responsibilities, its own requirements. You have to be humble about that and say, what can I learn? How can I prepare myself to best serve in that role, right? So when it comes to transitioning, you have to be, you've got to put the work in, okay? No one is going to just say, wow, you just got your DD-214. Here's 15 jobs I think you should apply for. You're amazing for all of them. You've got to put the work in, and you have to, be a lifelong learner of where you fit throughout your professional journey as well. Transition is tough. It is. Everyone that's ever transitioned will tell you that, even if they went into even if they found an amazing role first time out, right? And they've been with that company for the last 10 years, which rarely happens. Everyone will say it's tough. But those that have more success and maybe say that it's a little easier are those that put in the work. And it does require that. Doing the networking, taking the informational interviews, working on your resume, doing a lot of soul searching on where you think you would fit and what you think you're good at, or where your passions lie. What's the right fit for your family, job-wise and location-wise, right? Let's talk about bringing your family into the decision-making process, because they often don't get to be part of the decision-making process when you're in the military and you're PCSing every couple years. So just taking a holistic approach to it, I think, Avi, is also important as well, and taking all those factors into play. I could talk for hours about transitioning, but that's my, I guess, short answer on it is be humble, do the work, and just take a really holistic approach to it.
Yeah, Kate, a lot of your answers, I really feel connected whenever I speak to veterans like yourself, because some of your answers got me cheesing. I mean, I'm just smiling because, I that what you're talking about, as far as your military service is enough to get you into an awesome job, is exactly how a lot of folks think. They think that when they get out, then that's enough. Like going through your AIT and then going through your other courses, if you're enlisted, that's enough. When I get out, the career world is going to throw rose petals at my feet, and I'm going to get all the offers, and then it's like just so disappointing when that doesn't happen. And so for me as a leader, it was always important to say, look, you need to get your bachelor's degree, you need to get your associate's degree, or whatever. You need to do something while you're in here. Don't waste your time. And I think it's important for, like, Avi, for example. He's a future military leader. Hopefully Avi, which I don't have to hope because I know he will be, he'll be the type of leader that's going to be like, hey, get your butts to the education center, start investing in yourself. Right, Avi? So,
You know it, KP. I know too much now to let that go by.
and it's
You've
important
seen
to
too much.
involve it's important to involve some of our future leaders, just like Avi, into the conversation. And we hosted Clubhouse for a long time, and we only had a couple folks drop in. We had a brand new Army second lieutenant come into Clubhouse and was talking to some of the service members and veterans about their experiences, which I find absolutely amazing. I didn't seek any type of elder leadership when we were getting out. But so Kate, I really appreciate your time on the morning formation today. Your answers were spot on, and I know a lot of folks out there, while they're listening to this, are going to be thinking, wow, I can resonate with what she's saying. Is there anything that you'd like to close out and let our listeners know about either military experience or transitioning out of the military, or the organization that you work for?
Absolutely. So first, I feel like I have to plug that. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with HireMilitary, and the other people within our organization. I think I can speak for our entire company that we might not be able to provide exactly what you need. I can't build your resume for you. I might not have the open job that you're looking for, but we will do everything we can to connect you to those people. And at the least, just joining your network and hearing from you what you're interested in. I'm more than happy to always do that. So please connect on LinkedIn with myself. And the last thing is just, and I feel like I say this over and over and over again, but put yourself out there. Don't be scared to start. Okay. We all started somewhere. Every transitioning service member, every veteran started somewhere in their journey, right? We all started somewhere, and we all want to give back to the community, our military community, right? So, put yourself out there. Do it in a smart way. Do it in a professional way. Don't expect everyone to respond. Don't expect everyone to give you, that 15-minute call the first time you ask them. But ask, right? Hey, I really am interested in the work you're doing at, KPMG and consulting, whatever it is. I'd really love to pick your brain for 15 minutes. Just ask. Put yourself out there and ask. And it's never too early to start. Never too early to start your transition. Yeah, that's what I'll leave you with.
Some great advice. Some very great advice. Avi, before we finish out the show, what are your thoughts?
Not much to say, KP. Kate, we had a great interview here. You answered everything perfectly, and you have so much insight and so much value to add to so many veterans and active duties, so many active duty service members' lives. Highly, highly recommend everybody listening to check out HireMilitary and all of these different veteran organizations.
Most definitely. And for the folks that are looking to connect with Kate, or looking for the links for HireMilitary, all that will be in the show notes as well. And her email will also be on there too, so you can reach out to Kate and ask any additional questions and follow up. As for the morning formation, KP, Avi with kate.wood, I want everyone out there to stay tuned, stay focused, and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out.